welcome. I will take this opportunity to introduce you to the concept maps that I have been using to review for the CPTD exam, and I'll include the link to them below. I already clicked on this, and that takes you to something like this. It might be zoomed a little bit differently, but in any case, I will zoom in. So the section is 1.2, Emotional Intelligence and Decision Making, and there's only one knowledge statement of focus for the exam, and that is this one, 1.12. The legend here shows what how I've marked things. So the exam areas are with the exclamation mark. All the knowledge skill statements in the TDBoK book are here, and then the topics that relate to each statement are linked to it. So I will just overview what's in this one, the section of focus. I've mapped it this way to be able to group ideas and be able to try to see how they connected, since some of the same ideas recurred throughout the different sections. This one, research on EI, kind of grouped into future of EI, criticisms of the model and benefits. Definitions, largely distinguished between EI and EQ, with EI being the potential to monitor, so the practical ability, being able to monitor your own and other people's emotions and then use that knowledge to act. And I use the one just to kind of highlight that for myself, since that was one of the key things. And that EQ implied a measure, and that it could only test the knowledge about emotions and knowledge of how they worked. Moving along to what else is in this section, there is some discussion of the history of IQ, EQ, and Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, and then two models in particular, Mark Brackett's ruler model and Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence, 5 competencies, and that's discussed at length in several other sections, so I have some lines here that we will get to. There's a section on using it, a section on Goleman's 5 competencies. They were connecting ideas in using EI in talent development, even though some of the terms were a little different. Say, for example, here, self-management and self-regulation. But before we move on, lastly, there were 3 model types: the mixed model, the ability model, and the trait model. And the mixed model is built on 5 competencies, which describes Goleman's 5 competencies. I won't go through all the rest of this. I'm going to zoom out for a moment so you can see some of the connections here. The lines are faint until you zoom in. You'll also notice there's a start here, but since that's not the way that I use it, I won't talk through that too much. So a lot of the ideas clustered around Goleman's model, and there were also connections to connecting EI to talent development and using practical skills to improve effectiveness in communicating and strengthening messages, discussion of observing behavior in groups, adjusting one's behavior and then situations for that. And then back here, connecting the skill in managing one's emotions and emotional state. One was Goleman's as an approach, and then developing skills in EI, and that was also connected to being better equipped to change behavior and increase EI when one has methods for uncovering personal bias and prejudice, and then some ways to do that. I will zoom back out here. So there were some other clusters of ideas, knowledge and skill. I'll zoom in on each one quickly, but I won't go through what all of them are, since they weren't the topic specifically on the exam. Using logic and reasoning, obviously tied to critical thinking, and then coming over here to the decision-making models. So the critical thinking was tied up here through the decision-making. That's where I will zoom out and come back to the area of focus, which was really right at the start. So I'll include the link to this below.